On this episode of Watch Stuff With Us, more Mr. Ballen videos. Part 3? I think so. Thanks for checking out another episode of Watch Stuff With Us. I'm JD.
I'm Katie.
And we are watching Mr. Ballen videos. If you like these videos and you like us even a little bit, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you're notified each and every time we go live or start a video. We are live right now, and you could be live with us, but you're not because you're watching us on the replay. Every Friday, 7 p.m. without fail, most of the time. So, without further ado.
Without fail most of the time.
Let's watch.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Today, we're going to look at 3 stories that demonstrate that. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to take the like button out on your boat for a scuba diving trip.
Let's do this is right.
If they go underwater, just turn your boat around and head back to shore. Also, please subscribe to our channel.
Yes, you are correct,
all
Steve.
notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories. A 28-year-old Russian man named Artyom Sidorkin started having severe chest pains. And at first, he tried to ignore it, but it got so bad he could barely stand up, and then he began coughing up blood, and so finally he went to the emergency room. When he got there, even before the doctors examined him or gave him an x-ray, just based on the way he presented to them, being pale in the face and hunched over and very sick-looking, they assumed this must be something very serious. So that day, they brought Mr. Sidorkin in for an examination, and after talking to him and hearing about all of the symptoms and just looking at him, the assumption was he probably has a tumor in his lungs. So they sent him in for an x-ray, and afterwards, the radiologist looked at the x-ray and confirmed that, yep, there is a mass growing inside of your lungs. And so before they went to just start removing huge pieces of his lung, they told him that they would like to do a biopsy, where they remove a small piece of the tissue and test it to see if it's cancerous or not. And so Mr. Sidorkin is terrified, but he says, okay, he schedules the surgery. He goes in a couple days later, and the surgeon pulls out a piece of his lung tissue, and as it's sitting on the tray, he looks down at the tissue, the surgeon does, and he realizes there's something hidden inside of the tissue, as if the tissue was like an envelope holding something inside of it. And so he opens it up, and there, growing on the side of his lung, was a small fir tree. It was 5 centimeters long.
Okay, tree in his lungs.
They say don't swallow watermelon seeds because they grow watermelon. Apparently, don't be eating any fir trees either.
Right? What is that? Like, yeah, it does sound fake.
I mean, I feel like the only way to get it into your system is to have eaten it.
Yeah, some sort of seed or
I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully Mr. Ballen tells us.
Some things just shouldn't be eaten.
True. And this is one of them.
Tree man.
It was green. It looked very lively. It was just a thriving little tree. The doctors believed Mr. Sidorkin, who was a botanist, had inhaled a seed of a fir tree, and it got lodged inside of his lung tissue. And then as it grew, its pine needles began piercing his blood capillaries, causing him to cough up blood. After the discovery of what was inside of his lung, a spokeswoman for the Royal Botanic Gardens in London said that it is possible.
Dude, that's crazy. Like, you can full on see, like, the tree. Let me make that a little bit bigger for everybody. Like, you can full on see, like, the tree leaves. Dude. Yeah, it looks like he has a pine tree in his chest.
Can he still have some ornaments?
Right?
Decorate it a little bit.
Yeah. Dude, that's wild. That is wild.
Baby fur.
Yeah.
Possible for a seed to germinate inside of the dark, damp conditions inside of a lung, but it is unbelievably bizarre. When doctors informed Mr. Sidorkin that he did not have cancer, he had a tree. Mr. Sidorkin,
that'd be my luck.
He said, I never got the sense that there was a tree growing inside of me. But more than shocked, he was just relieved that he was cancer.
Be the last
there
thing
is a picture of this tree inside of his lung tissue, but it's a bit graphic, so if you want to see it, go ahead and Google tree and lung, and I'm sure you'll find it.
I'm going to be Googling that later.
Wow. Yeah, if he didn't show it, I'm not gonna show it either because I don't want to get censored by YouTube. Actually, I'm gonna go look at it. Yeah, look, I'm not gonna pull it up. I'll look at it on here. So everybody, go Google it yourself.
And long. I'm gonna beat you. You're winning.
Oh, wow. It really is. It looks like he just like swallowed a piece of a pine tree.
Yeah, like a little part just.
Yeah, and it just started growing.
Aww.
Little tree. I wonder, did he do anything else? Like, did he put it in water after this, or
did they save
was
it?
it just
Is it in a jar? Like,
I know. I would try to like grow it into an actual tree.
That is one strong tree,
dude. For real. For real. What did it like take? Did it take root on like his lung? Like, ugh.
Yeah, must have.
Ugh. Yeah, that's creepy. That's creepy. All right.
Cool though.
We'll go to the next one then.
Growing up, Pauline Dakin always suspected that there was just something off about her family. And years later, she would find out she was right. In 1970,
don't we all?
parents, Ruth and Warren,
Just kidding, Mom.
To Pauline, it wasn't that much of a shock because her father, Warren, was a heavy drinker and was extremely violent. But after they separated and Pauline, her mother, and brother had moved into another house on the other side of Vancouver, Canada, Pauline noticed her mom started to act really anxious all the time, but she never knew why. When Pauline was 9, her mother told her and her brother that they were going to go on a vacation to Winnipeg, which is 1,000 miles away from Vancouver. And so they loaded up the van, they hopped in, and they drove all the way to Winnipeg. And when they got out, they went inside their new vacation home. And Ruth informed her children that they were actually never going back to Vancouver. And when Pauline and her brother said, "Why? Dad's still back in Vancouver. I want to see Dad." But Pauline said, "Sorry, kids, this is the way it has to be. And when you're old enough, I'll explain everything." Confused and sad, Pauline and her brother began starting a new life in Winnipeg.
Nope.
Over the next 4 years, Pauline never saw her father, and so she lost touch with him. But she started making a couple close friends in Winnipeg, and she was starting to feel like this was home. But right as she was starting to feel normal, her mother told her and her brother that they needed to move right now all over again. This time they were going to go all the way to New Brunswick, the far east side
of Jersey.
Canada. Their mother
clearly not wanting to be found.
They would tell no one about this move. But later that day, when Pauline was with her best friend Wendy, she let it slip that she was moving. And so when Ruth came to pick Pauline up from Wendy's house,
Kids,
the two girls
big
had
mouth.
to affect these sort of breezy goodbyes to each other so that Pauline's mother wouldn't suspect anything. Once in New Brunswick, the family did put down roots and they stayed there for many years. But Pauline's mother still was just incredibly anxious and paranoid about something. The kids just had no idea what it was. Fast forward to 1988, when Pauline was 23 years old, she had moved 2 hours away from the family home in New Brunswick and was living with her boyfriend and was working as a reporter at a local newspaper. And during that time,
she totally looks like a reporter from the 80s.
She's so cute though.
That is so funny.
I like her
though.
style.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I would have looked at her and been like, yeah, reporter, for sure.
her mother called her and said, "Hey, I'd like to meet you at a motel. I'm finally ready to tell you everything about your childhood." Pauline was really intrigued and excited. This was a conversation that was literally decades in the making. And so Pauline eagerly went to the motel. She saw her mother waiting outside, kind of pacing around, looking very anxious. And so she walks up to her mom and she waves and she's about to speak when her mother just looks up at her and puts her finger over her lips, telling her to be quiet. And then she jams an envelope into Pauline's hands. And on the envelope, it just says, "Don't say anything. Put your jewelry inside of this envelope. It's probably bugged. I will explain everything inside. Just please don't speak." And so now Pauline's really confused.
How would her jewelry a bug?
She took her jewelry off, put it in the envelope, and gave it back to her mother. And then the two of them.
Okay, I'll ask this to Katie, and I'm also asking this to everybody watching. Would you have done that if somebody had just handed, or if your mom had just handed you this and told you to not say anything? Just put your jewelry and stuff in this envelope because it's probably bugged, and don't talk. Would you have done it? Without talking, would you have just done it?
I think I would trust them. I mean, you always kind of believe what your moms say. You grow up to, believe the word they say. So, yeah, I would have put it in there, but there would have been a lot of questions going on in my head, and it would have been hard to keep my mouth shut. Because how would somebody have access to your jewelry if you're like living by yourself? And all of your jewelry, how do you get bugged? It's not like it's the same stuff you've been wearing since you're a child and somebody had access to it. I mean,
right.
I don't know. We'll
I-
find out, but
For me personally, yeah. Like if it was somebody that I knew and that I was comfortable with, like I would 100% just do it.
right.
But I know some people, who would be like, well, why do you want me to not talk? Like they would have instantly just started questioning everything, and just would have blew it up right then and there. So yeah, I mean, I would have went right along with it. If you're watching right now and you're live with us, would you have went along with it? I'd love to put your answers on the screen. So, but we're gonna keep going.
Silently walked into the motel, into the room where Pauline's mother was staying. When they went inside, there was a man sitting in the middle of the room that Pauline immediately recognized. It was the reverend of their church when they used to live in Vancouver. His name was Stan Sears, and Pauline's mother had been his secretary the whole time they'd gone to that church. Pauline always knew her mother and Stan were close friends, and in fact had kept in touch
See their
after they
father?
left Vancouver and were in Winnipeg and then New Brunswick. In fact,
Okay.
Pauline remembers periodically seeing
Or were they in a cult?
Aren't they always?
Yeah, probably.
There's too many cults around here.
Stan
Creeping up.
show up in Winnipeg and New Brunswick to visit with Pauline's mother. So it was a surprise, but not a total shock when Pauline's mother confessed to her that in fact she and Stan had fallen in love. And in fact, they had had a secret relationship from the time they lived in Vancouver. But this revelation was nothing compared to what Pauline heard next. Her mother explained that the reason they had had to move so many times during her childhood was because Pauline's father, Warren, was actually a mobster and was a key member of
You would have done it,
organized crime
yes.
syndicate in Vancouver. Right after they separated, Pauline's
Oh,
mother
monster.
found out she had a hit put on her head because the mob now believed that the husband could not control her anymore.
Oh,
and
mobster.
She knew too much. Stan
I heard
also
monster.
found out that he had a hit
That
on his
too.
head because Ruth discovered that the mob wanted to kill him too because they knew about their relationship. And then also, apparently Stan was counseling a man that was in his congregation that wound up being a mobster, and so the mob believed this man.
Even though
had given
most
up
mobsters
critical
have side
information.
chicks.
Yeah, they do.
But if your wife is with somebody else, then they gotta kill
Then
you.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
But you can have as many girlfriends as you want.
I don't know,
Nice
man.
stuff.
I'm not one of the ones that would be messing with somebody in the mob. So, I'll talk about this after this is over. Let's keep it going first.
Stan, making him even more of a liability. At first, Stan said he didn't believe any of this, but when he found out the man he had been counseling had been assassinated, he knew it was true. They decided not to tell the police and instead go into hiding together because Pauline's mother knew what happened to families that snitched on the mob. They were made examples of. And so when Pauline and her family moved to Winnipeg and then to New Brunswick, Stan actually moved there as well in tandem, which is why Pauline had seen him periodically showing up at their house to visit with Pauline's mother. Pauline was understandably completely shocked, but at the same time, she was kind of happy to have some sort of explanation for all the strange things that had happened in her childhood. And so over the course of the next several hours, Pauline sat in this motel room with her mother and Stan and asked them every question she could think of. And she discovered that whenever she came home from school and she found her mother furiously pulling all the food out of the fridge and the pantry, throwing it all away with no explanation, that was actually because they found out the mob had tried to poison them. Or the 6 different times Pauline was unenrolled from the school she was at and then moved to a different school across
That's
town, that was
hard.
because there was a credible threat the mob had discovered where Pauline was going to school. And so by the end of the weekend, Pauline not only learned about this totally crazy past she had, but she also learned that she was still in danger. And so before Pauline headed back home, she asked her mother and Stan what she should do to stay safe. And Pauline's mother said, well, that's actually the reason we called you here now. Because after all these years, we were just tired of being in hiding. And so we've already spoken to the authorities, and they've moved us into a special witness protection program for families connected to the mob. When you enter this program, it's referred to as entering the weird world, where basically you're not really safe, but you have agents that follow you around that are undercover.
Well, you're
that
not
track
really
what
safe,
you're doing
though.
and make.
Dude,
People are following you, but you're still not really safe. So
right? Like, okay.
have a good time.
I don't.
Good luck.
Oh, I got so much to say after this is over.
There's
Best
no
of luck.
assassination attempt on you. And before Pauline could even ask, her mother told her that as a measure of her and Stan entering the weird world, they asked that a couple of agents monitor Pauline and her brother, even though they didn't know they were being monitored. At this point, Stan reached forward with a radio and he said, here's a radio that actually broadcasts to the agents that are following you pretty much all the time. but you should only use it if you're truly in a desperate situation, because as soon as you call out for help, there are going to be people that are risking their lives to come save you. As Pauline is holding this radio, she looks at her mom and Stan and she says, well, what happened to Dad? Is he in jail? And at this point, Pauline's mother says, no, he's not. He's in the weird world too. And she handed Pauline a letter that was from her father.
I'm sorry, the
addressed
weird
to
world.
Pauline.
It makes me
It
laugh.
basically spelled out that he had been moved into the weird world and he was looking forward to Pauline joining them at some point when she was ready. So now Pauline has this radio and this letter, and she's looking at her mother and Stan, and she's just totally overwhelmed. And her mother just tells her, go home, think about what you want to do next. And if you want to join the witness protection program and join the weird world with us, just let me know. And we'll
Join the weird world with us. That sounds like a shirt.
Gives her mom a hug and gives Stan a hug and says, okay, bye, I'll be in touch. And she leaves the motel and she gets in her car and she's about to back up when she looks and sees Stan running outside holding something in his hand. And so Pauline stops, Stan runs up to the window, and he says, hey, I forgot to give you this. And he held up this round piece of metal that he told her was a GPS transponder. It was magnetized, and she should put it out of sight underneath her car. And what it does is it constantly gives off her location to the agents that are following her. So if she was in trouble, it would be easier for them to find her. And so Pauline thanked him, put the transponder under her car, and Stan went back into the motel. And so Pauline went back home with the intention of just digesting this information, knowing that she was being watched, she had this radio, she was, relatively safe. And her plan was to just give it a couple of days before she committed to joining the witness protection program and joining the weird world. But after only a couple of days, her paranoia was so high that she dumped her boyfriend, she quit her job, and she moved out of her house into a separate apartment. And she called her mother and said, I can't take it anymore. I feel totally unsafe. I want to join the weird world.
Like, I get that. I totally get that. Like, you can't give somebody that type of information.
I want to join the weird world.
I can't. You give somebody that type of information and they're going to, like, lose it and think that, like, somebody's watching them at all times. Like, I would be super paranoid. Like, really paranoid. And normally I'm like the type of person who, like, okay, if I go into a restaurant, and we talked about this before, if I go into a restaurant, I always sit so that I can see, like, the door. And, like, I'm that type of person who looks for, like, the nearest exit when they go in somewhere. And just because of the way that I was brought up. But I couldn't imagine to know that, like, the mob was looking for you, or they could be after you. And it's not like the mob is going to wear a shirt that says, hey, I'm in the mafia. Like, no, they're gonna look like normal people, and you would never know, like, if they were about to, come up and kill you or something like that. Like, that's super stressful, dude. I'd be losing it. Totally losing it. Totally losing it.
If somebody told me, I'd probably just laugh and be like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, weird stuff always happens to me, so I'd be like, all right, let's just roll with this. This is not a surprise. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's my life.
Yeah.
He knows me well enough
Of
to know
course.
all the things happen to me, so
Yeah. All
it would
the
not.
weird
I get all the weird
things.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Everything strange happens in my world, so
Yeah. So
it wouldn't surprise me
if it
much. I'd be
was-
like, yeah, okay.
If this was you and you knew that the mob was after you, like, what would you do? Answer that question live right now or in the comments below. And if you're watching right now, please hit the like button. Hit the like button. Stop what you're doing. If you have not hit the like button, do it right now while I take another drink.
Pause. Buy you a drink. Ooh, I'll take you home with me. I got money in the
You'll
bank.
take me home with you. I am home with you.
I know. It was a quick trip.
Her mother and Stan were delighted at her decision, but they told her it wasn't a simple process getting into the weird world, that a lot of people were involved in her basically giving up her old life and entering this new one. And so Pauline's mother told her that she would be in touch with one of her agents and they would contact Pauline when it was time for her to go. And so, anxious and scared, Pauline began to wait and wait and wait. And her mother said, oh, just give it some time, they'll be in touch soon. But the waiting dragged on for 5 years. And in that time, Pauline met a new boyfriend, Kevin, who became her husband. And in conversation with him, Pauline started to doubt this whole mafia thing was even true. And so she decided, in order to find out if this really was a real thing, the mafia was actually after them, that Pauline would need to set up a sting operation on her mother and Stan. And so Pauline called her mother and very convincingly told her that, oh oh my goodness, someone just broke into my apartment. I think it was someone from the mafia. I
Doesn't
don't know
seem
what
very
happened,
kind,
but can you
though.
tell me
No.
what to do? Should I call the police? What do I do? And her mother said, no, don't call the police. Whatever you do, don't call the police. I'm going to get in touch with Stan and see if he knows what to do. And just a couple of minutes later, Pauline's mother called back and said, okay, honey, I spoke to Stan and he spoke to the undercover agents that sit outside your house and have been watching you for all these years.
What's up, King?
Yes, unfortunately, not one,
Hello.
but two men from the mafia broke into your house today. But luckily, they went up, they grabbed them, they're in custody, so you're safe now. And Pauline said, Mom,
Okay.
I made that up. No one's been in my apartment. I've been here the whole day. I lied to you. No one broke in. And it was at this point that Pauline realized her mother and Stan had been living a lie since she was 5 years old. There was no mafia. Her father was not a mobster in some Vancouver crime syndicate. It was all made up. It would turn out Stan was suffering from something called delusion syndrome, where totally normal people that are totally lucid and have normal lives have one distinct delusion. And sometimes that delusion is not a big deal. But sometimes it is, like they believe the mafia is after them. And during his relationship with Pauline's mother, he passed on his delusion to her through something called folie à deux, which translates to madness for two, which is shared delusion syndrome, where someone who's delusional, who's a dominant personality, can pass that on to a subordinate personality. After confronting her mother and then also confronting Stan at a later date, neither of them said, this is a lie, you're right, you caught us, because they believed it. And they took to their graves the belief that the mafia was after them. Their biggest concern after Pauline said this isn't true was not that they had been exposed as potential frauds. It was that, oh no, Pauline's going to expose herself to the mafia because she's not using her GPS transponder or her radio or living in the weird world with us. She's going to get assassinated by the mafia. And so even though Pauline never got an apology from her mother or got to really talk about the insanity of this whole situation, because again, her mother and Stan took to the graves the belief that the mafia was in fact after them, Pauline ultimately made peace with the situation by writing a best-selling memoir called Run, Hide, Repeat. It is linked in the description below. Check it out.
Okay. So, what we're watching.
Poor lady.
King asked what we are watching. We are watching Mr. Ballen videos.
Yes.
Has all sorts of like creepy and weird stories.
True stories.
True stories, yes. Definitely true.
Hardly believable at times. But
So.
crazy.
So, this is like a mental, like,
Yeah.
delusion.
Yeah.
Where you sort of make up this thing in your mind and like really, 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 really stick to it.
Well, that's how like cults are, though. Because I just watched that. What was that one show I watched? The Sins of Our Mother. I think it was on Netflix. And I mean, she was baddie and believing all this stuff. And like, you know, married somebody believing all this stuff. And like her kids were kind of like, is this real?
Yeah, like I can't.
You're like
Okay.
brainwashing your children because of your own delusions.
Right. And
like,
she's
it's sad.
like, just think about all of that stuff that they talked about. Like this guy has a transponder. Let's work backwards. He has a transponder.
But you could probably
she
just get on
took
Amazon.
her jewelry off because the mom thought that it was bugged.
They probably sold it.
They moved multiple times, like not just once, not just twice, multiple times.
What did they say happened to her dad though?
They said that the dad was in the weird world too. So I don't know if he was like really in the weird world
like
or if
they
they just made that up.
him.
Yeah, probably.
I want to
Or
read it.
he knew that she was like effing crazy.
Yeah.
And was like, peace out. Like I'm out of here.
But then he'd want his daughter, you'd think. I want to read the memoir though to find out if she like went back to her dad and tried to resolve things and be like, where have you been? Help me.
Dude, that is
I went through some stuff, Dad. Where were you?
That is legitimately wild. Like I could not imagine how it would be if you have if you truly think that these things are true and that the mafia is after you. Like
what brings you to think
that's
that?
like okay, what's the difference between that and like schizophrenia?
Schizophrenia, it's all in your head and you're seeing and hearing
and
things.
you see it stuff happening.
Now I don't know
this
if
is just like a story that you're
I don't know if
believing.
I mean, they could also be schizophrenic.
Yeah,
it's a possibility.
Yeah,
that would help
Dude,
drive
that
all
was
this.
that was
But
crazy.
why would you
though.
choose the mob? And like, what evidence do you actually have for any of this?
What made that? Like, what got that going?
I mean, I know there's a lot of people with mental health that, and I have mental health. I'll be honest, issues. But like, I know there's a lot of people that would believe that there were people after them, and you know, and I mean, even I at times, you know, leaving stores, I'm always like, is there somebody following me? So it's easy to believe that, but I mean, to go that deep is pretty.
Dude, yeah. I mean, to
rough.
the point where that's like that has completely dominated and took over their life. Like
That
to the
poor
point
girl
where you're
needs
moving
therapy so much after all of that. I mean, she has to rebuild her entire life. And
or I mean, just to think that like you knew like all these things were happening.
Yeah.
And then you find out at the very end that like all of that stuff was for nothing. Like think about relationships that she had built with friends when she was
and every
younger.
time she would build one, then they'd have to move
Then
again.
they'd go somewhere else.
And this is like pre-social media, I'm sure. So like she's not like she can keep in touch with all these people.
Dude,
Poor
that's
girl.
Wild. That's
broke up with a boyfriend. I mean, she found a new guy. That's good. I'm glad she married him. I hope he's
yeah,
stable and can help her with all of the trauma that she went through. My goodness,
man, yeah, that's crazy.
I wonder what her mom and stepdad are doing now. Are they just out doing their own thing somewhere in the world?
Sounds like you need to read this book.
I do need to read the book.
You need to read it.
I do. I'm interested now.
First story was good. Second story was definitely like really good. So I hope this third one is like really, really, really.
I feel like we always build up to number one. Like when people make things like 3, 2, 1, one's the best. So we'll see.
It better be.
I'm excited.
It better be. And if you're watching right now, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Jump in the comments. We love it when you comment and when you talk to us. So talk to us. We don't have to just watch this by ourselves.
Tell us who you are, what you're doing.
Yes, we see you're watching. We see how many people are watching. So say something.
We're not that creepy. It's just a number.
Big shout out to Stevia. Big shout out to Shro. Big shout out to King because they commented. So much love. We appreciate you. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the like button if you haven't done that yet. So let's keep going.
In November of 2004, 52-year-old Peter Porco and his wife, 54-year-old Joan Porco, were like...
Talk Porco! Story time.
Peter Porco. Like, is that like... That's like an alias of Spider-Man. Like
Peter Piper, Picker, Pecker, Pickle, Peppers.
No, remember there's like the pig Spider-Man. Jazz, what's the pig Spider-Man name? Oh, thank you. Okay.
We don't know.
Yeah, it was Spider Pig. Wasn't it Spider Pig?
Does it ever?
Peter Porker. That's it. So was that his name? What was his name? Peter
Porco.
Porco. So close enough. Maybe he's Spider-Man. Okay, that was like a ridiculous tangent right now. But the story that she's talking about is that one day like we're talking about like mental stuff sometimes. Like I don't know what happened, but I was trying to say pork tacos, but it came out as tack porcos.
We were driving past a food truck.
Like
legitimately. And he got so excited and he goes, "Tack porcos!" And Jazz and his daughter and I look at each other like,
dude, legitimately came out as tack porcos.
It did. So now we always call them pork tacos, tack porcos. Because of this lovely man and his amazing brain.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anyway, back to Porco.
All right, yeah, let's get back to this guy.
Porco.
Yep, get back to Ballen. Back to Ballen.
Back to Ballen.
Many other middle-aged, middle-class Americans. They lived in Del Mar, New York, in a comfortable 2-story home, and they worked for a living. Peter was an
Thank you for laughing with us and not at us.
If you're laughing at us, it's okay too.
That's cool too.
That's fine.
Christopher was a 21-year-old student at the University of Rochester, and his brother Jonathan was a 23-year-old naval officer stationed at a submarine base in Groton, Connecticut. On Monday, November 15th, 2004, Peter woke up to start his typical Monday morning work routine.
I like the log cabin background. Very Abe Lincoln.
Looked in the mirror, dressed in his work clothes.
Lincoln logs.
Upstairs, he put in a pot of coffee. While the coffee was brewing, he unloaded the dishwasher and then
put the dirty dishes
into the dishwasher and started it. He wanted to get his newspaper, so he went outside. He got his newspaper. He realized he locked himself out of the front door, so he got the spare key out from underneath the mat opened the front door, went inside. He sat down, had some coffee, read the newspaper. After a few minutes, he put his coffee cup in the sink. He packed himself a lunch in his lunchbox, and then he headed to the door to head to work. Peter was known as a very reliable employee who was also very punctual and rarely missed work. So when he didn't get to work that Monday morning, the court was a little bit confused. They called him to see if he was okay. He didn't pick up. So they dispatched a court officer to go make sure he was okay. And so the officer arrives at his house. He sees cars in the driveway. Front door shut. He goes up. He knocks on the door. Nobody answers. He tries the handle of the front door. He realizes it's open. So he opens the door and he yells out, "Hey, I'm just looking for Peter." And the door hits something on the ground. Pokes his head inside and looks down. And there on the ground, the thing blocking the door, is Peter Porco's body. He's clearly deceased, and he clearly has a massive head wound. The court officer steps outside immediately, calls 911. Local police show up. They go inside, and sure enough, Peter is dead. They go upstairs, and they find his wife, Joan, in bed, also with a massive head wound, but she was still alive. Joan was rushed to a hospital where she underwent emergency surgery and then was put into a medically induced coma. Meanwhile, the police began their investigation into who could have done this. They quickly discovered that the home's alarm system had been smashed and a phone line, because there still was landlines at the time, had been cut from the outside, and a screen in one of the windows had been slashed that looked like the way someone climbed into the house. However, nothing appeared to have been stolen because police almost immediately found Peter's wallet with money inside of it still sitting in the house, as well as very expensive jewelry
So they knew the
belonged to Jones still sitting in the house. As they continued to search the
you knew the victims, you're out for vengeance.
Yeah, and you weren't looking for money, so it wasn't a robbery. Obviously vengeance, or
it didn't sound like anything else was
anger,
like disheveled or upheaved in the house or anything.
Right,
It's not
right.
like you were looking for something specific. You were just looking for the people. There's Peter Porco.
Porco. That was his problem.
Poor guy's doorstep now.
Yep. And if his son, one of his sons did it, it's because their last name was Porco, and he was mad because he passed that name down to him. Like, I'd be mad if my name was Porco.
Oh, top Porco.
JD Porco. JDP? JP? Jeremy Porco?
Nah, you gotta change your name.
Yeah, for real.
You gotta change it.
What would go with Porco? Like,
especially that one guy who was in the Naval Academy or something. So, they just yell at his last name.
Porco!
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 Porco! All the jokes. Poor guy. Some of us are just dealt a bad hand.
Discovered a fireman's axe that belonged to the Porcos, hidden inside of one of the bedroom closets.
I wonder if they have a side of their houses as the Porcos.
The Porco sons had been away during the
I'm sorry.
John was on his submarine in Connecticut, and Chris was at the University of Rochester.
Apologize if your last name is
Chris
Porco.
found out about the attack on his parents when he saw a news report, because the story of this innocent, typical-seeming American couple in a quiet suburb getting struck down by some axe-wielding maniac had gone totally viral, and it was all over the news.
Axe-wielding maniac. He phrased it that way.
About his parents' death. Here's the recording.
Hi, my name is Chris Porco. I was just called by the Times-Union saying that my parents were found dead this afternoon. I was wondering if you had any information for me.
Hey, Chris, what did I tell you?
I'm at school in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
That's
so
awful.
He was calling them to find out if they had any information on.
They must not have contacted the kids.
Right. Like, what the
That's
hell?
your job. You contact the
Like,
next one.
Yeah, how does that happen? Dude, and like, he sounds so calm. Like, I would be jacked
Maybe
up.
he put a hit on his family.
Oh, boy. All right, let's see.
Never know.
Okay, you're in Rochester?
Yes.
Okay, and you're hearing from the Times-Union?
Yeah, they said my parents were found, I guess, I don't know, they didn't say how or anything.
So you will be here probably, you're going to go right to Albany Med?
I don't know, I don't even know where my mom is, but...
Yeah, she is at Albany Med.
Okay, do you know her condition?
No, because I haven't talked to her. Let me give you my pager number.
As you can tell, Chris is extremely emotional. He's beside himself. He can barely speak. He's so upset about what's happened to his parents. No, actually, he sounds as calm as...
I was going to say, he don't sound
because Chris Porco was
messed up.
actually a psychopath, and he was the one who attacked his parents with the axe. As it turns out, Chris was failing at school and taking out huge loans in his father's name by forging his signature.
And he's probably surprised his mother is still alive.
Porco, right, their son, a strongly...
That's why he's checking status on her.
This behavior has to stop, and they're very disappointed in him, but they love him, and they will help him get back on his feet. Chris responded by driving home in the middle of the night, sneaking into his house, and attacking his parents with an axe. While
Chris
this case is
Porco.
already disturbing, horrific, and tragic, it's what happens to Chris's father after the attack that makes it one of the most brutal cases of all time. After being struck 16 times in the head and laying unconsciously in his bed as his son snuck out of his house, Peter suddenly sat up and began his morning routine. He got dressed, he went to the bathroom, he shaved.
What?
He went downstairs, he made coffee, he did his chores, he went outside to get the newspaper, he got locked out, he got the key from under the mat, went back inside, he packed his own lunch. When he was finally ready to go, he headed for the door, and then he collapsed and he died.
Dude, this guy must have an iron skull. I bumped my head on my car door and I'm out for the day. I'm like, ugh. My head hurts. I can't do anything.
Dude,
16 blows to the head.
We cannot, like, okay.
What's he doing?
That's not that. Okay, first off,
What's he doing?
that axe was gigantic. That was a giant axe. I don't care if you had 16 blows to my head with a butter knife. I'm not trying to make my lunch.
With the same butter knife.
Dude, like this
Oh my
cat
God.
took 16 blows to the head with an axe and is somehow still like, oh, well, guess it's time for work. Let me make this sandwich real quick.
I mean, it's not like he's hitting him in the same exact spot.
Hold on,
like
let me
16
get my
times where it
tie
would only
right.
be
Let
like
me get
one
my- let me
part
get
of the
my tie right.
brain that
Oh,
would be affected.
let me-
Like, I'm
let me-
sure he's not just like strategically getting the same spot.
Let me
16
throw my
times.
shoes on
Yeah.
real quick. Get my coat on.
Dang
Oh,
it,
okay.
we're out of ham.
Man, let me go. Honey, do you have turkey? Okay.
Gotta
all right.
settle for pork.
Hold on. I'm bleeding a little bit, just a little bit.
You missed my pork jokes.
So this dude does all this stuff,
He is
and
the pork.
he is somehow with it enough to get to the door and then finally die. Like,
But yet he's hit in a way that he doesn't even know that he's been hit when he comes to. He doesn't realize he's injured, or else he would have gotten the phone and called for
you would
help.
think.
Instead, he got up and thought he was just getting ready for work, and
He just thought that he took a nap. He took a nap, or he had drank a little bit too much,
How do you not feel the pain, though?
and it was just,
Like, truly, I bump my head on anything,
Maybe
and
it's-
I'm
maybe
like,
it's-
oh my God, I'm down for the day.
maybe it was shock. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's shock. Like, you
Even
can be in
so-
shock so much that, you don't feel anything. I mean, personally, I've been in a situation where I was in shock, and maybe that was the reason why I didn't feel any pain.
Did you
And
make a
people
sandwich?
obviously thought I should have been in pain. No, I didn't make a sandwich, but maybe I should have made a sandwich. I don't know. But let's watch the end of this. Maybe there's something else like crazy too.
Due to the severity of Peter's head wound, his brain was basically broken and it was unable to recognize he had been gravely injured. So in his final moments, he believed it was just a typical Monday morning going about his work routine, when in reality, he had a gaping head wound and he was basically dead after the 16th blow to his head. One of the more surprising and
Walking
heart-wrenching
Dead.
details of this case is that Joan Porco, she did survive the attack. And after she came out of that medically induced coma, she said she forgot all the details of the attack, even though when she was discovered in her bed, she did indicate that Chris, her son, was the attacker. Nonetheless, she got together $250,000 to post Chris's bail, and she allowed him to come stay with her during his trial. And the
Part of me is like, that's so sweet. And part of me is like,
That is horrifically sad.
Fick?
That's horrifically sad. Like, that's so sad. Dude, like that, man, like, okay, these videos do something to me that they make me feel. Like, I get that. I get why he's so popular. And I don't think it's necessarily him, like he's not super special.
He's
But the
got the real
stories
good
that he
stories.
presents are like, you know, they're crazy. And
I
like,
love our children, but if one of them tried to kill me and also killed you, I would not be like, come on in, I make cookies.
Right. You know what? I made your bed, so just come on and like.
It's okay, we
oh
move
my
forward from this. Every
God.
family has stuff. We'll just
Dude,
we'll be
dude,
all right. We'll just talk about it.
dude, and like look at her.
I mean, she has to look in the mirror and like remember this. It's not
That
like
he did it, and like look at him. What is he?
he's smiling.
She might be smiling too, though.
Don't do that.
The two
I
attended the trial
just don't
together,
get it.
walking into the courthouse hand in hand. Chris was very quickly found guilty of killing his father and attempting to kill his mother, and he was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. Despite the verdict, Joan Porco still speaks to Christopher over the phone and frequently visits him in prison. It's unclear if she still believes he is innocent. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode,
Dude, that's so sad to me. That's sad.
What about our other son? I wonder his thoughts.
I know.
He probably said, "Peace out, family." I'm sure he's not coming for Thanksgiving because
No.
his mama is probably spending Thanksgiving in jail with the other son. So
Dude, that's really sad.
he's
That's
not
really
bringing sweet
sad.
potatoes.
I feel really bad for them and the fact that they were able to, or that she, you know, I guess loved her son so much that I guess she had forgiven him, or maybe because she didn't remember what had happened. Maybe.
But still, somebody tells you, and you still.
But I mean, if somebody just told you, like, if somebody just told me that you did something crazy, like, I would believe it, I guess, to some
But
degree.
you'd have more forgiveness because you don't recall the incident.
Right, because
Okay.
you don't remember it. Like, if she had actual memory of the event that, you know, made her look the way
She'd
that
have
she
like
looked,
that terrorizing trauma from it, but she doesn't have that. She just has, what she sees in the mirror.
Right. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I understand it when it comes to that. See how we processed that? That was pretty good.
That's
But
because we worked with mental health for years.
true. But that's
A lot of
still
analyzing.
like if somebody told me that, you know, whatever happened to me and I was looking, you know, I had been, you know, injured really bad like that, and somebody told me that you did it, I would feel I wouldn't be able to just like hold your hand and be like everything is okay. And I mean like the real
It wouldn't have been me. It would have
psychopath.
been your child.
But I'm just saying if it was you.
Pick one.
But the real bad person in this is the son. Like, oh my God, man. Like, how horrible are you to first off do this?
What did they
And
say he was mad about again?
I don't remember. It doesn't even matter.
Something about payments for something, I think.
Yeah,
Nothing worth
Yeah.
ever doing
But
that
even
over.
if he
It's not like
was,
they're like terrible people.
even if he was like that and he was mad and he was angry about the situation, like to then I'm sure he switched gears and went to like, oh, I love my mom mode when he was in court. And like obviously, like if you go back and look at them, you know, walking in the court, holding his hand, or she was holding his hand, like that is a horrible, horrible, horrible person.
And he was only calling because he's surprised that she lived and was checking to see like what her condition is because he was hoping she was going to die from her injuries, and she didn't.
Right. All right.
These things make me semi-upset.
A little bit.
Only because they're true stories. I mean, if this was fictional, I'd be like shaking it off. But this is people are not kind.
Man.
People are it's a lot of crazy out there.
But do you know what is kind though?
Me
hitting that like button and that subscribe button so that you can also hit the notification bell afterwards and then be notified each and every time we go live. So do that now if you're kind.
And me.
Oh yeah, you're definitely kind. I'm not.
That was pretty late.
But thanks for doing that. Thanks for watching this with us. I'm JD.
And Katie.
Don't be a stranger. Also, don't hit anyone with axes 16 times.